Hey everybody, I'm Mr. Todd. This is Stories and Solutions, and I have Andrew Racho here, voiceover artist, producer, writer, director, everything guy. Check it out.
You said that you got your start through Craigslist.
Oh, yeah, sort of. So I guess we should go through the history of me. Hi, I'm Andrew. I
I was gonna dub that in.
no, I'm a voiceover actor. I got my start in entertainment through an internship. I went to college. Let's start back at high school. At high
Okay.
school, I thought I was gonna be like, I didn't know what I was gonna do. Like my family, I love my family, a lot, but we didn't grow up in an entertainment household. We watched television, and I liked listening to stand up and all this stuff, but I didn't come from like an entertainment business family. Everybody had fairly humble jobs, and to this day still do. Um, and when it came time for me to figure out what I wanted to do in high school, I was in like a TV productions class, and I was like, oh, it'd be cool to be like an astronaut, aspire to something. And then I saw all the requirements. My science grades were terrible. I didn't want to go into the military. I was like, you know what, I really don't like this juice is not worth this squeeze.
I
As much
got
as
you.
I would love to go to outer space and really gamble on that possibility of being one of under 100 people, or however many who actually get that opportunity, I was like, this juice is not worth this squeeze,
Got you.
especially going into the military. So I was like, I'm done thinking about this. And it was like, what do I do? And so it was my TV productions class. I was like, maybe I'll pursue this. I went to communications school, and when I was there, we had a couple opportunities to do stuff on campus, and I just rather than just focus on trying to get everything out of school, I took all the other opportunities. I sat in those edit bays that nobody was touching. All my Saturday nights were overnights sitting in the editing bay learning how to do this stuff, doing some college radio and being terrible at it, and really learning all the hard lessons through failing hard through all that stuff. All that stuff is like cringe regret at this point in life, because it was me cutting my teeth and not being good at it. I started to get laughs at a certain point. I started to do things right, but for every one thing right, there were always 10 things wrong. But it
Yeah.
was, you know being young and stupid. And then I got a couple internships, and then when I went to Los Angeles, I was like, I want to pursue this entertainment thing. I don't know where I'm going to fit. At one point, I was going to do radio DJing, but I went to a Clear Channel station my senior year with my radio teacher, and it was 9 stations, and there might have been 4 people there the whole time. Everybody was programming their weekend show. The caller boards were lit up, and nobody was there to answer them. And I was like, if the future of radio is this automation stuff and voice tracking and just not being this live experience I grew up with, I'm out. Done.
Oh, okay.
So radio was out of the table, and television was something that I was like, here's an industry, and I gambled right on this one. Was like, here's a place where storytelling can really turn into something amazing, where it doesn't have to be your sitcom of the week. I wasn't really interested in that. I was like, where can storytelling turn into something more, where you really endear yourself to all these characters? And I'd been growing up on like animation, watching anime and watching Adult Swim and all these other things that weren't, your Everybody Loves Raymond and all that stuff. So I pursued it, and I met with this alumni. He showed all of us how to get jobs. He was like, and this is the day in fax machines. You fax it to this production with this thing. It's like he listed it out how we all had to hustle to get jobs, and we all followed that to a T. And we all
Okay.
followed this group mentality, which was, if you get a job, we all get a job. Like, we all share in the success of one person
Because
who gets it,
yeah.
and not compete. But if one opening shows up, everybody in that group knows, and we all send our letters over, because if one of us gets this job, we all
I'll
win.
get to yeah, yeah.
So they all
That's
got
good.
the jobs, and I didn't.
Oh,
I
whoa.
was the last one left. And it
Really?
was pure lottery at that point. I was up for so many jobs, but like, it was, oh, we went with somebody's, I remember I was up for something on like, I think it was American Dad when that first came out.
Yeah,
I went
I
in for an
remember that.
interview. They liked me, and then I met the animatic editor years later. It's like, oh yeah, they gave that to my roommate. I was like, oh, or like they gave it to somebody's roommate or somebody's friend. And I was like, oh, that starter job was like what was a big deal to me. It was like, oh, they just need to fill a spot, and I was, I was one of the people they could have picked,
I
and
got
that's
you.
how all that process was for us starting out. Was just you could get picked. You know, some of my buddies got picked, and they ended up being writers and creators on some very large series. They did very well for themselves. Some
Okay.
people moved into some big things, and I was one of the people who just the numbers weren't in my favor. So
I see.
I went video game testing for a while. And so I was like, oh, I got a college degree. I know how to do all these things. They called me back. They're like, we weren't even going to call you, but we're desperate for work. Like, we just need somebody to fill this thing. You're good enough, I guess. And I was like, I just got out of college, dude. Like, I'm more than capable of doing this work. Like, come on. Um, but
Mm,
that's sort of how, when you start out, that's how people are going to see you until you've proven yourself to every single person.
yeah,
And you still have to constantly prove yourself because nobody cares anyway. But like
that's true.
to, like that's just the bottom was like was that. So after game testing, uh, I could only work while the work was available. So if a game was available for me to test, I was working. If there wasn't one,
Oh,
I wasn't
you were
working. And there
there.
was a period I wasn't. And I remember going on Craigslist and being like, on that last breath, kind of like after running a marathon, you're like, I see the finish line. I'm just gonna gasp out these last few breaths and just. So I go on my computer. I'm like looking up stuff on Craigslist. I see this thing for this stop motion community production. I'm like, oh, it's like that Nightmare Before Christmas thing, whatever. The one of a dozen resumes I'm sending out that day. I send that out. I sit in my bed. I'm staring at my popcorn ceiling in my apartment, and I'm just like, there's a good chance this isn't going to work out for me. Like sheer
Mm,
numbers wise, this isn't like all of this. Like I have no job. I don't know how I'm paying rent. There was a point where like I thought my tire went flat, and I almost just sat in my car and cried because like I was like, if I can't afford this, like the dream's over at
I
this
see.
point. If I can't make this, if I can't keep this bare minimum that I've got going, and this is hard. I
So
remember
what?
sit, I
Sorry.
remember, oh, sorry. I was like, I remember sitting on that bed and being like, what am I going to do? And I got the phone call from these people to, intern or interview at this stop motion production, which I got. And that turned out to be the TV show Robot Chicken. And that went on for, was it 200 episodes at this point? So,
That's
I,
yeah.
I got my luck, just not when it was expected or when anybody would have seen it or how anybody would have seen it. You know, that wasn't my only opportunity that I got off of, that stuff. I interviewed off of Craigslist for Tim and Eric, who were huge. The problem is I walked into that interview almost getting into a car crash. So I was just in a heightened state of like manic energy and
Oh,
panic energy. It's like, oh yeah, 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 yeah. You want me to do this? I'll get you coffee. I'll get you coffee. Oh yeah, yeah. No, I know Flash. I can do that. I can. Certainly, I can edit anything you need me to. Like it was uncomfortable. Tim and Eric couldn't have been nicer people. They were very, very nice guys. But I walked in with,
but you're going.
yeah, and it's possible that might have all been in my head. They just picked somebody else that they gelled with more. But that was my experience from it. They were very sweet. I just got lucky with Robot Chicken. I knew I wanted Adult Swim to work on that stuff. I saw it as a growing network, and I really liked it. And I got lucky. But it's very possible I could have gotten lucky working on that American Dad show. It's
What
very
they?
possible. I I put in a resume for Gilmore Girls to work in their post department, and I could have gotten that and been on that for
Like
it's
5 6 years or whatever it was.
yeah. And then while I was working on Robot Chicken, I was just doing all this beginner stuff, PAing and production assistance, that and moral oral. And I got to learn a lot and be around stuff. But, doing that, I was like, I'm I need more in my life. I didn't want to just it wasn't enough for me to just work on a production and be in the realm. At a certain point, it's work.
You want it? Yeah.
And
There is.
I needed my creative outlet. There was like I can't just like when you work in a large production, sometimes you can just be happy being part of the large production and seeing what that does. But for me, it's like I need my voice. I've got this. This is things need to come out creatively from me because I'm not like I can't be happy just seeing my influence come out from just being a small part in a larger production.
Uh,
I gotta have the choice in that stuff that goes out to entertain people, and that's where my sort of larger goals were. So I ended up taking a voiceover class, and after a bunch of failed acting classes that like they were fine, but like I took this one course where it's like, oh, there's a way you can prepare for acting. There's methodology. There's like it's not just like going in front of people and being accepted blindly for your personality or whether people like you or don't like you. There's a way you can approach it to make your work engaging.
yeah, like a
And
craft.
yeah, there's a craft to it. Yes. And then I ended up working. So took all their classes to the point where they ended up hiring me and eventually I started teaching there. So
Really?
that's how I ended up teaching you was just, all of this kind of circles back around in a long way that like, had I been picked up on working on Gilmore Girls or whatever, like,
Yeah, we
yeah,
were never met.
we never would have met. We
Yeah.
would have probably passed each other, at a coffee shop or, someplace in Los Angeles, never have known each other. And that's kind of the way that life works. It's just you never know.
See, that's why I think of like energy so much because I still think what you're doing, like you're still doing what you love, you know.
Yeah.
So I think there's a certain like flow to a person that well, however it is, like you went to Syracuse, right?
Hmm.
So
Yeah.
like I'm a New Yorker and I get it. And I think like there's a certain rhythm there. There's a certain rhythm here.
Yeah.
But if you're a person that's trying to find your way, you're mixing with other rhythms, right?
Yeah.
And whatever that influence is at that time, that gives you that trajectory to go. Whether it is Gilmore Girls or Commons and whatever, you there's still that rhythm you have to fit in, and
Yeah.
and I think that when you're happy with the or satisfied with the accomplishment that it's an accomplishment period that if you ever sit at the water and you see it moving but you can actually see the little sparkly reflections from the sun. I always look at that as like angels, like little happy moments of like so because there's water everywhere. Like how you say like there's waves everywhere. So that's all the people trying to be in the business or be rich or what they think is security. But those little ones that you see, on the horizon is just little glimpses of shininess. You can tell, okay, that person is just content with the fact that you're being, like you're just being, and whether it's how you're expressing yourself through Robot Chicken or teaching, or you're still
Yeah.
giving something, so that's really cool.
Yeah. There was definitely moments on Robot Chicken. Like I, I'm sort of a weird person in the sense that I kind of get the bigger picture when I walk into things. Um, that I sort of have that fortune in my brain.
Okay.
And sometimes it's developed, sometimes I learn it. Like I'll give an example of how that works. So I used to suffer from sleep paralysis pretty bad.
Mm.
Do you know? Have you gone through it, or do you know what it is?
Yeah, I don't sleep much. I'm like a 3 to 4 hour a day if I'm lucky.
Oh wow.
Yeah, 2 a.m. to 6 a.m. is usually my my goal.
I mean, if you can still function very at a high level with that little sleep, I hold jealousy.
No,
Um,
I don't
so
sleep really.
for all my flaws as a human being, one of my things that I do have the ability to do is start to see things for what they are. So I used to suffer from sleep paralysis. For anybody who doesn't know what that is, your
I
body
do.
basically goes into a state where um, when you sleep, your body paralyzes itself so it doesn't move and you don't act out your dreams. Um, because then you wake up and your entire apartment's trashed and you're like, oh, what happened?
Yeah.
So your body knows to shut it off. Sleep paralysis, you tend to like go through a part where you're starting to wake up, but your body's still paralyzed. So you get the sense that you're in your where you fell asleep, but usually there's like people will experience being abducted by aliens, dark figures in the corner, demons, incubus, succubus, all these things that, you know, all these stories a lot of times just come from sleep paralysis.
Mm.
And it's usually a haunting feeling, and you get that feeling of dread that if you don't wake up, bad things are going to happen. And I've not woken up, and it's horrible. It's not a good thing. So I, for the longest, was, you know, had to deal with this over and over and over and over and over. And at one point, I was sleeping, and it happened. And I did in the dream, rather than try to wake up from the dream, I just stood up in the dream. I was like, this dream is stupid. This is a dream. This is stupid. I don't like it. No, you're not real. You're not real. This is all an illusion. This is all in my mind. I'm going to do whatever I want in this dream. And so I
Nice.
learned to turn sleep paralysis into lucid dreaming by
Nice.
seeing the, you know, what it is, you know. And with Robot Chicken, with you know, a lot of things I've done is like I've always kind of walked in knowing that mentality of like, what we're doing is silly. Like, we're entertaining people. This is silly. This is stupid. We just get to be lucky enough to revel in this stupidity. And Robot Chicken was, you know, we're putting on a silly show, a stupid show for everybody. But I also knew that like this was going to be something that people would connect with, people would watch, people would connect with their youth and enjoy it, and, you know, remember what it's like to be a kid playing with toys, and, you know, say dirty jokes with your friends and stuff, and that we're going to enjoy it.
Yeah.
People are going to enjoy it. One thing I did forget though, you know, over time, as much as you get stuck in the mindset of like, oh, I got, here are my daily tasks I got to do, this is work, this is my job, you know, is that people come, you know that like you help depressed kids like go through tough stuff. You know, a lot of times you hear the stories of like, you know, my family's terrible, but, you know, here's this thing that got to be like an anchor for me, which is, you know, some piece of entertainment. People talk about that with Harry Potter a lot, but you also hear it with like, you know, whatever show it was, you know. Cartoons are a big thing too. um and then what I forgot was like Make-A-Wish kids too, is
Really?
like if you like, you know, if there's something that like you've really enjoyed, like, you know, we remember what it's like, especially being younger, to be fans of something, you know.
Mm-hmm.
For me it was like, you know, whether it's like SNL, like Chris Rock, Adam Sandler stand up, Chris Farley, like, you know, to just watch that stuff over and over and over. You know, cartoons from when I was a kid, like it gets to be part of your life. And when you get to the point where, you know, uh, maybe you don't get all those things, those moments of realization in life, but you know you love something a lot,
Right.
and you get that opportunity to be a part of it in some small way before everything goes. It's like, oh yeah, like we recognize what we're doing is silly to most people, but to a handful of people, it's everything. Um,
Yes. Yes.